And everybody, Uneducated Economist here. So in today's video, we're going to be talking a lot about the homelessness and the inequality, the growing inequality that has taken place here in the United States and really across the entire globe. But what it is that is happening and what can be done about it. Now, I know this is a very sensitive subject and it's not exactly the most pleasant one for a lot of people to think about or to discuss, but it's very important to understand what it is that's taken place, because if we are to do anything about the problem, we have to understand how we got here to understand how it is that we can move away from it. Now, it has been my belief and understanding from everything that I have ever read that this is the natural consequence of new money flowing into the system, is that you will have a separation between the rich and the poor every time, no matter what, guaranteed. New money comes into the system. The people who have first access to that money will spend it at face value. As they start to increase their spending, that consumption will then start increasing the prices as the supply-demand imbalances begin to take place. Now, this is not something that I've theorized on. This is something that has been proven many times throughout history. Cantillon describes it great in his essay. If you haven't read the Cantillon essay, you can go get it for free at the Mises Institute. Just type into the description Cantillon essay on economic theory. You should be able to find it right away. There's 3 chapters in that essay. I think it's a 3-part essay. It's in part 2, chapters 6, 7, and 8, the increase and decrease of money to the state. Read those 3 chapters. It is very, very telling of how new money comes into the system and then separates the rich from the poor. And then once the new money turns off, everybody falls into poverty. Now, again, it's better to understand this for the economic force as opposed to a political action that might be taking place. There is plenty of blame to be thrown around, especially when it comes to the political view of things. However, the underlying economic force is far more powerful than what it is that's taken place within the political environment. However, if you are not aware of the economic forces that are taking place, the underlying economic forces, then you will have no other choice but to blame somebody, and that somebody will generally be the elected leaders that are out there. So this is how most people end up facing this problem inaccurately, is because if you blame political action, if you want to blame politics for it, like a particular decision or a group of decisions or a group of people, or in that sense, right, and you want to blame this, then what that would also have to entail is that there's a way of fixing it, right? Because if you point to them and say, hey, they're the reason why this happened, then you should be able to point to another group and say they can fix it, right? The problem with that is that they can't fix it either, right? But not understanding how it is that we got here to begin with and then blaming the political action of it, you will be forced to have this belief that they can fix it because you have a belief that they broke it. Right? So if they broke it, these other group can fix it. And that's very inaccurate. That's so, like, nothing could be further from the truth when thinking in it that way. We have to understand that the reason why we had such a high standard of living here in the United States is because we were a manufacturing powerhouse. I mean, that's undeniable. The American-made products from the 40s, 50s, 60s, even going into the 70s and 80s, were by far the best products in the entire globe, right? Everybody wanted American-made. And so as the American products were flooding the world was sending us their money. Now, just like anything out there, I don't care if you're a country, a corporation, an individual person, if you start getting a bunch of new money in, what are you going to do? Right? I mean, say you're 18 years old, you were making $10 an hour, all of a sudden you're making $15 an hour, or you're making $25 an hour, right? Like, I'm taking it back and just being, facetious in a lot of this stuff, but you kind of understand what I'm getting at, is that if you are looking at the income that you have received and it starts to move up, what are you going to do? You're going to spend that money on new stuff. You're going to go out there and you're going to buy a new car or a new work car. You're going to buy nicer clothes. You're going to go out to eat. You're going to buy rent a nicer apartment. These are the things that you're going to end up doing. All that stuff is the move into luxuries. The moment that you start to move into luxuries is the inequality growing, right? So now, to understand the real problem is way back in the day when the people were very industrious, worked really hard. They saved and acquired a good position in life and then started moving into better things in life, right? Once you have acquired the money, you wanted nicer stuff. That move right there is the reason why we have such massive inequality taking place within the United States. It's because the people kept moving into higher luxuries. Yeah, it would have been great for the people to say, hey, let's make a conscious decision not to do that, so that the ability for a regular 9 to 5 job to be able to provide enough to buy a house could be sustainable, like to maintain that. The only problem with that is you would have to convince everybody to not buy the luxurious experience. You'd have to convince everybody to say, don't buy cars, don't buy nicer houses, just buy the cheapest, efficient house that you could ever possibly buy without anything that's going to be big and beautiful and luxurious. Same thing with the cars, same things with the vacation, same thing with the food and everything else that you got going on out there. You keep these type of purchases to the very bare necessities, and then you start moving everything else, all that extra income, whatever the hell extra means, right? You move that money beyond that of what you're using to your necessities, and you move that into production and savings. Well, then you might be able to have an economic environment that be somewhat sustainable. But it doesn't work like that. I mean, I don't know how many people are going to sit around thinking, man, I've worked really hard for 10 years and I got all this savings and I'm not going to enjoy it. Like, does that make sense? Of course not, right? If you have earned $100,000 and you have it stacked away and you've been driving a little tiny piece of crap car like this S10 and you said, man, I want a new truck, right? And you go out and buy one, you would believe that you deserve it. And you do. Everybody does. But that's the exact problem. Is the moment that that starts to happen, you will find the inequality growing. And so to understand this is the problem that we face nowadays, is the massive amounts of new money that comes in, separating the rich from the poor. The people who have first access to that money will continue to separate themselves from the poor. When you have massive inequality like we do today, the average 9 to 5 job and the individual who's working hard and trying to scrimp and save so that he can buy a house is not able to compete. It doesn't work like that anymore. It's quite unfortunate, but not only does he have to have that really good 9 to 5 job, but then he also has to have a side hustle. And not only that, his wife is going to have to work as well. And they're going to have to do it twice as hard as they could ever possibly imagine in order to acquire the things that they need in this life, because of the massive amounts of new money that has poured into this system, separating them from the richer elites that are out there that can go out there and buy that stuff. Can't fix this. I don't care who you vote into office. I don't care what political decisions that they make. You're going to have one of two moves. You're either going to have new money coming in and separating the rich from the poor even more, which is probably the outcome that we are going to face, because I doubt it's going to move the other direction, which is to reel in that money and to have no new money coming into the system. And the problem with that is everybody starts falling into poverty and misery. So there's two moves that can be made. Separation between the rich and the poor, have that grow ever more, the inequality being worse, people complaining about it. There is some poverty, but for the most part, people get to participate inside of the system, not in a good way, but they're still functioning. Or everybody falls into poverty and misery. Which one is it going to be? Most likely, the expansion of the money supply and the more separation between the rich and the poor. People ask me to predict things all the time on this channel. I tell them I'm not really big into predicting things, especially like interest rate cuts. Like, that's a big deal, right? And I've tried to discuss that many times. But if you want one prediction that I'm going to make, more war, more debt, and more separation between the rich and the poor, guaranteed, right? Without those three things going on, we are going to have a completely new environment, one that doesn't exist in the way that we expect it to today. But if we expect the things that are happening today, this system, to be operating tomorrow, then you're going to have more war, more debt, and more separation between the rich and the poor, guaranteed, right? It can't work any other way. If it didn't work that way, the whole system collapses and it falls in on itself. So that's it, right? If you want the system to continue and get fixed, right, then you have to understand that the problem can't be fixed. The problem is going to either be more inequality or poverty and misery. Which one do you want? Because there's no other way of going about it. All right, 10 minutes into the video, 226 people watching, 42 likes. Thank you so much for hitting that like button. I know I talk depressive doomsdayer stuff, but to understand this then gives you the ability to then position yourself in a way that is most appropriate for you. I had people giving me a hard time saying, man, I wouldn't trust anybody who's sitting in an S10 and, you know, babbling on about something, working at a lumber yard like he knows anything. I don't know how many people know my story. But just a few years ago, I was broke, in debt, drunk, had nothing going on in my life, and now I don't even know how much I have in my assets now, $100,000, right? Buying a house. I got a lot of income, low expenses. I don't know how many other people out there who are busting their ass 12 hours a day, trying to go out there and make it happen. But when most people are doing that, they don't get to spend time with their family. You know how difficult it is to try and acquire the things in your life that says, hey man, I've really made it. I've moved up into that higher level of, I don't even want to call it like, you know, elites. I don't even know, like, understand any of that stuff. But to tell people like, yeah, man, I did it, but I didn't spend any time with my family. Right? My kids hardly even know me. Like, how many people want to have that sort of life, you know, with them? Not me. Right? I want to spend time with my family. My whole goal is to pay my bills on time. Right? Now, when I understand how it is that this system is operating, the more I understood it, the more I started conditioning myself in the positions that I have taken to then keep me with low expenses, lots of income, and a move into assets. And I seem to be doing that quite efficiently right now. So if you want to see me in a new car, to those people who think I should be driving a new car, go get me a new car, because I don't plan on getting a new car until I have $2 million in the bank. So if you don't like the car that I'm driving, that's too bad, right? Because I got more important things in my life that I'm working on. Spending time with my family, setting myself up with a retirement, trying to build up this business. So people need to understand that it's not impossible to do it nowadays. It just takes a hell of a lot more effort than you could ever possibly imagine. It's going to take more than what it is that you had seen your parents do. And although you might have seen your dad working 16 hours a day, working construction, right? You're going to have to work 16 hours a day, not only doing the construction, but you're going to have to do online sales. You're going to have to start a side business. You're going to have to do all kinds of other things out there as well. Because this is how the system works nowadays, is that it doesn't allow for a regular 9-to-5 job to be enough. A 9-to-5 job will be enough to live in your car, right? And then you'll be able to acquire all those wonderful things in life, like a retirement. But if you want to have a place to live, if you want to raise a family, if you want to have those type of things and experiences in your life, then you're going to have to do a hell of a lot more than what that 9-to-5 job is going to provide. Yeah. I mean, I don't know. That's the way I had to figure it out, is I tried the 9-to-5 thing and it didn't work out very well. And once I realized that it has to be more income and less expenses, right? And moving every single day, every single year, moving in that direction, that's what it took in order for me to then acquire the things that I feel is more appropriate for my life. Like a retirement, like savings, like, you know, being able to pay the bills on time. Most people look out there and they say, hey, if you're, you know, riding around in a Mercedes Benz and you're wearing a suit and you're working in an office building, then you've made it. Really? Yeah, you made it pretty tough on yourself as far as I can tell. Is that the life that you wanted to live? Yeah. That's the questions that you have to ask yourself when you take this information in. Like, what is it that you really want from it? Most people just want to feel comfortable in what it is that they're doing in their life. They don't mind working. Like, working ain't the problem. Going to work is fine. And most of us actually enjoy going to work. It gives us something to do throughout the day. It gives us something to feel, you know, proud about at the end of the day, especially if you're doing things like, you know, construction or something where you get to see the project coming together. Like, there's nothing wrong with that. The problem that we've now faced with it is that no matter how hard you work that job, it's not enough. And that sucks. Okay? You wonder why there's so many homeless people out there. It was just like, yeah, how hard do they have to work in order to live in their car? Like what ambition is that? You know, what excitement is that? They could work there and they could work as hard as they want, and they'll never, ever, ever be able to acquire the things in their life like their parents had done. And that sucks, right? A good job sucks for most people out there. There's areas in this country that you can make it, sure, right? And, you know, really, it's not that terribly hard to make it in general if you really focus in on it. You have to be very disciplined. You can't be partying it away. You can't be, you know, drinking and doing drugs and enjoying that money in that fashion, right? You can't do that. That's not the way it works. You have to be incredibly disciplined with every penny you have. You do that and, you know, you might be able to make that 9-to-5 job cut it, right? But if you want anything else in your life, if you want to enjoy it in any way, you want to have any kind of luxurious experience like internet, you know, which is a very much a luxury experience that most people take for granted. You want that kind of thing in your life, then you're going to have to cut out the expenses. You have to cut out the expenses and increase your income. And any other way of looking at it is going to fail. I don't care who you vote for. You can vote for anybody you want and believe that that person can then provide an environment that is going to say, hey, man, all the decisions that you have made in your life were the appropriate ones. All right? And I guarantee you, if you voted for somebody that did that for you, it wouldn't work for your neighbor. It wouldn't work for your buddies. It wouldn't work for somebody else out there. There's nothing that an elected leader can do to change anything about this to make it better for you. The only thing that you can do is try to figure out what it is that is happening, the position that you have taken, and the appropriate decisions to do from here on out. All right. 17 minutes into this. Oh, wait, look at all these comments. My goodness. Did I see? Who is it? All right. Snowy Mountains. Thank you so much for being a member of the channel. Really appreciate that. Lucas says, that's all BS. The harder you work, the sooner you can retire. I retired at 57, but I didn't work 40 hours a week like most. See, this is where I'm getting at, Lucas. Is like, you didn't work 40 hours a week like most people. See, there was a time that people could have worked 40 hours a week and it would have been just fine, right? And because that's the way they understand that the system should operate, they feel that 40 hours a week at a regular job should be enough, but it's not, right? I mean, it can be, but man, you have to be so disciplined and not enjoy that any of that money, no fear of missing out kind of stuff, none of that, right? Don't hang out with your buddies, don't go skiing, none of that, right? All right, Simon Udeman, well, thank you, I appreciate it. All right, if you can't fix it, you don't own it. Yeah, that's true. I don't see that. I'm so amazing. I don't see that. I'm so amazing. No. But BTC is probably a valuable position. You know, I agree. Like, I didn't want Bitcoin to be as awesome as it is. Like, I mean, whether or not you think it's awesome, I mean, that's my opinion, I guess. I didn't expect it to do what it had done. If I had, I would have put a lot more money into it, I guess. I just took a position in Bitcoin just to have a position in Bitcoin. Took a position in Coinbase because I thought it might be a good position to take in as far as the stock market with exposure to crypto. Those two positions, Bitcoin and Coinbase, have absolutely just smoked all the rest of my positions as far as whatever I have, right? ExxonMobil, Altria, you know, Vanguard's ETF, stuff like that. I put a bunch of money into all those things, and nothing comes even close to what Bitcoin has done. Like, it just like the entire portfolio exists essentially in Bitcoin now, even though that's not the position that I wanted to, like, I wanted it to be in one of these stocks or something, right? Like, I mean, you know, personally, I was like, hey, you do the traditional thing, you put it into stocks. I put some into Bitcoin, put some into stocks, put some into Coinbase, put some into gold and silver, put some into real estate, and Bitcoin just shot right up, right? Just consumed basically the entire portfolio. Okay, like, I didn't want it to be that way. That's just the way it is. Glad I took the position. It's amazing. Like, when you have half a Bitcoin to watch, like, You know, for some people, it may not be a big deal to watch it happen, but for me, it's a big deal to watch a $3,000 move take place within a matter of a few hours and even minutes, really. You know, that's an amazing thing to see happening. Now, I don't get real excited about that because my expectations of it are incredibly low. Right? Like I had no expectations when it came to this point, so I have very little expectations for it to stay here or whatever. Like if it goes up, down, or sideways makes very little difference to me. Right? If it went to zero, it'd probably bum me out that I didn't sell, but I don't expect it to go to zero. Right? So it's like, you know, hey, awesome. All right, moving on. In short, you cannot sell yourself a free person if you owe other people money. All right. Also, the more debt you acquire, the less your own fruits that you can keep. In the other words, the more people you owe, the more money. The more people you owe money to, the less your work benefits you, and your work benefits the people. Yep, I totally agree. Like, that's just the thing. Some people ask, like, what is it that you invest in? What is it, you know? And I think to myself, most people are pretty heavily in debt. And if you're heavy in debt, like you got a lot of credit card debt, you got car loans, you got house loan, you got all these debts out there, pay those things. There is no better investment with your money than to pay off debt, right? Because whatever interest that you're paying, if you were to invest instead of paying off the debt, whatever investment that you make has to have a return on it beyond that of what you are paying in interest on your debt. So if you have a 10% interest that you're paying on a credit card, which would be pretty low for a credit card, right? But let's just assume that you have this 10% credit card that you're paying, right? You would have to put an investment or put that money, instead of paying the debt off, to an investment that's going to pay far beyond the 10% interest that you are paying to offset how much it is that you're paying in interest. So you might as well just pay the debt off instead. It's like an immediate, like, you know, it's not a return on your money, but it's by far the best position for your money because of the ability for it to now, let me say, it's the best position for your money so that your money can then start, like, I guess, pay it off quickly so that then you can use your money for more reasonable purposes of investments to get the return, right? So instead of paying out on the investment, you're getting the return on the investment. But anyway, pay your debt off first, right? Paying the debt off first is by far the best way to invest. Once you do that, it just makes investment easy. You know, it is like it's nothing to it after that. But most people are trying to invest in a way that will pay off their debt. And that's like, it's very, I mean, I guess it's possible, you know, if you have something that moves dramatically, but that's like very difficult to try and do. Like, I guess you could, you know, attempt to do it in something like Bitcoin or whatever, but most likely that's probably going to end up backfiring. You know? Poor people pay down debt. Rich people use debt to make more money. Yeah, and see, Carlos, that's the difference in it. It's like good debt versus bad debt. See, now poor people pay down debt because they have taken out bad debt. You use debt to buy an asset that doesn't pay you, right? You bought a car, you buy a vacation, you know, you buy some other toy out there. This is the problem with most people using debt, is that they buy one of these types of items out there that ends up costing them, right? It doesn't have any kind of return. Now, if you were to borrow money to buy a rental property, well, then now the rental property is paying back the debt. That's a good debt, right? You borrow that money to even buy a car and then use the car for business, right? The car then produces enough money to pay for itself and maybe even have a return for it. So this is the type of good debt that most people end up not necessarily avoiding, but don't move towards because they go towards the luxurious experience instead. And so again, this is what ends up keeping poor people poor. It's not necessarily debt being bad, it's the good debt versus bad debt, right? And how it is that you are using that debt to make the purchase. All right, we got 450 Note. Where is that from? All right, Ryder Barstad, thank you so much. A little reverse Marshall help from Europe to our American friend. Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate the super chat. You guys are always so supportive of the channel. I really appreciate everything you guys have ever done. We got 362 people watching with 93 likes. Thank you so much for hitting that like button. For those of you who happen to be in the Astoria area, for the next 3 weeks at 1015 Theater, I will be performing. I'm in a play that we are doing. It's a 3 acts, 3 different plays. I'm in the last one. It's called Out at Sea. It's at 1015 Theater. We're doing Friday and Saturday night performances and Sunday matinees for like the next 3 weeks. So, you know, I will try and find a link and leave it down in the description of the video. But yeah, come check it out. It's a really fun play. It's about 3 guys stuck out on a life raft going through a election debating process and trying to figure out who it is that they're going to kill and eat. Oh, so funny. Dark comedy. It's great. Written back in the 60s by an old Russian guy, right? And very politically motivated within this thing. So it's basically got like the different elements of society. The characters are fat, medium, and thin. I play the part of medium. Fat is the kind of like the representative of the government, the powers, the elite, you know, all that other stuff. Medium is kind of representative of the masses in the way that I kind of see it, and then thin is representative of the individual person. And man, the way this goes down is so good. It's such a good play. Anyway, moving on. But yeah, come check it out. It's really fun. And the other plays are just crazy as can be. Like one of them is called Identity, and man, it is like, these people are just absolutely nuts in this play. Like they're just bizarre in their behaviors and stuff. It's a really good play. The actors do such a good job in it. It is such a good job. One of them, this guy John, he flips through like 4 different characters, and like you can just see like the shifting change just literally just by watching them go through the movements. And he actually argues, or not necessarily argues, but talks to his like basically to himself, who's playing another character. The way he does it is just brilliant. It's so good. So, love live theater. Live theater is by far the best, you know, live performances. All right, dear dude, ain't no one talking about bond yields are backed by taxation. Skip a few tariffs and roll that mighty play. Let's see what you got. Yeah, okay. Sounds all like wishful thinking to me. All right, organic hot dogs, healthy? Huh, I never really thought about it. Right now, no matter how much money I earn, no matter how hard I work, my share of the debt, national debt is $250,000. I don't have that kind of money lying around, and I probably never will. That's why. Okay, Nathan Bond, don't take part in it. You know you can exit that system, right? You don't have to participate in the system. You can exit out. Now, you have to be in gold and silver, Bitcoin, guns and bullets and food and stuff like that, but you don't have to be tied up inside of that. You can get out of that system. Now, how it is that you get other people to kind of network with in order to stay out of that system, that's the difficult part, right? But you can make that conscious decision. Now, the moment that you get into gold and silver, you are exiting out of the third-party claim. If you want to get back into the system, you're going to get punished for it with taxes or, you know, whatever legal ramifications that could come from it. But you don't want to participate in that system anyway because you don't like the $250,000 portion of your debt, right? So get out of it and don't go back into it. And it's going to be a difficult road because most people want to participate in the system because of how easy it is to operate in. Right? Even I myself don't like the system. I would much rather live like a sovereign citizen and say, screw the government. I don't want to pay taxes. I want to, I want to get paid in gold and silver. I want to pay out in gold and silver. Like, this is the type of life that I would love to see and live. However, it doesn't matter what I want. Right? And if I wanted that and it wasn't to exist, it probably wouldn't work out for some other people out there who don't want that system. So I'm not expecting to have that sort of system. I realize that it's a debt. I realize how big it's gotten. I understand that there's no fixing that system, and I understand how it is that I can exit out of it. Not that I'm choosing to exit out. I could if I wanted to. And understanding how it is that you can, and then creating that insurance policy by building up the the stack of silver and gold, or Bitcoin, or for a lesser extent, the Bitcoin, the cryptocurrencies. But this is the way that you get out of that third-party claim. So if you don't like the fact that you have a portion of $250,000 or whatever it is, that the number that you had out there, just get out, right? I mean, I don't know how you plan on living once you get out, but you can exit that. If you don't want to exit it, then you have to understand that's the portion that you're going to have to end up paying, right? If you want to play in the game. I look at that as not a consequence to me because I have an ability to exit out, right? That third-party claim, or that insurance policy away from the third-party claim. So in the meantime, I guess I have to play the game, and I'll have to pay taxes, and I'll have to do all the other stuff, and I have no anticipation that they're going to fix it or make it better, right? Or lower the inequality or any of that stuff. Like, I have no expectations of any government official, any system, anything out there doing anything that's going to benefit me, because I don't believe they can. The only person who can do that is me, right? And considering that there is a constitutional government that doesn't follow the Constitution, I don't even know what it is that these elected officials would do for me anyway. They actually do things that are going against what it is that I want. So I have no appreciation for them whatsoever. All right, moving on. What time is it? All right, guys, half an hour into this. I love it, but I got to go. All right, so this guy has joined the Doomsday Grifter. Why don't you just go ahead, bro? Harry, Chew, whatever, bro. You don't deserve the information. Go find someplace else to be, okay? Don't hang out here. Don't comment. Don't even be here, all right? If you think this is nothing but doomsdayer and all that other stuff, all right? If you don't like it, get out of here then. You don't have to be here. All right. How, in your opinion, would the gain of income tax money in people's pockets change the current economy? It'll give a short little burst of fun and excitement for people who have first access to that money. They'll be okay with it, right? But as far as any kind of real legitimate economic change, I don't believe that'll happen. Okay? Like, it won't. Think about all the stuff that they've ever done in the past. Has it ever lowered the inequality? Does it ever bring manufacturing back in a significant way? Like, oh, of course not. You know, I'm reading an article even earlier, like how the European, the Eurozone, the European Union went and did tariffs on Chinese vehicles or something, or like, hey, these Chinese EV vehicles, man, big old huge, 40% tariff or whatever. And the imports of those EV cars had fallen. But what did the Chinese do? Oh, they're like, well, you don't have all those heavy tariffs on hybrids, so why don't we just start importing a whole crap load of hybrids instead? So it's not like the vehicle count went down. It's just the type of vehicle that was getting tariff changed. Right? So you're going to tariff that type of vehicle, well, we'll just send you a different vehicle then. How about that? Right? And they still flooded the Eurozone with cheap Chinese vehicles. So go ahead, throw the tariffs on there, throw the government action, believe that it's actually going to work. At the end of the day, there's an economic force that is underlying, that is creating the situation that they are now trying to combat. The fact that they even put a tariff on there is saying that we have this screwed up economy to begin with. Our efficiency for production to get it out there to the world is not working. Our standard of living is too high. I don't care how many subsidies or tariffs you throw at that, the problem is not going to get any better. It's only going to get worse. So it's going to take ever-increasing amounts of tariffs and subsidies and tax cuts and everything else to make it happen. All right, what time? All right, guys, I got to go. I love hanging out here. Once I get really rolling on these things, I don't want to quit, All right. Dave Ramsey has some good info. He's good for debt. I'm not a fan of Dave Ramsey. I mean, I like his idea of getting out of debt and all that other stuff, but the rest of it, I'm not into it. All right. Debt markets, bond yields backed by taxation, external revenue, and tariffs. Dig into that. Fiat bump from there. Wishful thinking. And for the first time in my life, this is Nathan, and for the first time in my life, I actually have thousands of dollars in cash just sitting in my room, in addition to saving in my checking and savings account for the first time on Cash Positive. Well, I mean, not to give you a hard time and not to discredit it, because it's probably 100% your hard work, dedication, and discipline that gets you into the position that it was in. But you think about like how bad the economy must have been for you not to be able to do that. Like the economy must have been doing fairly well, or your understanding of the economy must have been doing really well in order for you to have acquired that sort of position with your money. All right? See, it doesn't matter what the economy is. It doesn't matter. It's your understanding of it, 100%. That's the reason why you're able to take the position that you had. Right? If you didn't understand the economy that you did, you probably wouldn't have that money right now. Who knows? You might be driving a fancy new truck or something instead. Maybe you are driving a new truck. I don't know. Right? But I mean, I'm just saying there may be an alternative to the holding of that money that you would be experiencing right now, but instead you have that money in your possession, and that gives you that stability that you obviously were looking for, having it in your room, having it in your checking account. This is what, like, you wouldn't be doing that if you didn't want that, right? And so just understanding that there must have been some understanding, your understanding of the economy must have been good, right? Because I don't think necessarily the economy was so good that you were able to do that. I think it was your understanding that it was. All right. The only thing I don't like about that Ramsey show is that it's like a cult. Yeah, I kind of agree. Hey, Nathan again. It's just like some people can go to the bar or restaurant, have a couple of glasses of wine with dinner, go home, and their life is okay. There are other people who, once they take that drink, they can't stop. And Nathan, I totally agree with you on that. And I have to say, I'm one of the ladders, right? I would love to have been the person who would go out and say, hey man, I can have a couple of beers, hang out with the buddies, and this be great. That I wish I love to have been able to say that. That's not me. I could have had a couple of beers, hang out there with the bros, but then I would have been picking up a bunch more beers on the way home because I'm not done. Right? And that's the way that I ended up doing it. And I wasn't going to be able to fix that. I couldn't go back to just drinking a couple of beers and being cool. Like, I wish I could have. It wasn't going to work like that. I had to give it up. I had to give it up entirely. And when I gave it up entirely, I gave up a lot. I gave up a lot of hanging out, a lot of fun, a lot of, all this stuff. Like, I mean, I was big into it. I even think today how I kind of miss the social aspect of it. You know how easy it is to have a party when you tell people, hey man, you want to come over for a barbecue and beers? People love it. You tell people, hey man, you want to come over for a sober barbecue? You might get a couple people. You might get a couple of close people who will come over, right? Alcohol makes the social event that much better, and I'm not denying that. It does. Like, I enjoyed hanging out and drinking with my friends. It was fun, right? No doubt about it. However, the deterioration to the rest of my life wasn't worth it. If you chase pleasure, you will experience pain. Guaranteed. There is zero doubt in my mind. You can look at it in any form of your life. If you are pursuing pleasure, you are experiencing a painful experience after that, or because of it, right? You're going to be in debt. You're going to be bloated. You're going to be sick. You're going to have somebody pissed off at you. There's going to be something that comes from that. Alcohol is overrated. Your default answer is wishful thinking. You better than that. Dig deeper and harder, because no one else is grasping taxation via IRS and backing bonds. Please don't skip over it. I'm going to skip over it, because what you're actually doing is you are trying to ignore the economic forces for that of the political action. And there is plenty of political action that is taking place out there that is going to be very impactful to your life, especially if you give it that meaning. Right now, you're trying to make me give it that meaning that I don't want in my life. I don't want to have that meaning in my life. And so therefore, I'm not going to take on that meaning. I have underlying economic forces that I have been studying for I don't know how many years now, that date back literally thousands of years. And by recognizing these underlying economic forces, that you can then see the politically motivated actions that take place as a consequence to it. There is plenty of political action that is happening that you can focus in on and then give meaning to your life and say, hey, this is very impactful, right? But then there's also a way of looking at it that says, yeah, those people are conducting themselves this way because of the underlying economic forces that are happening out there. And if you don't recognize them, you don't recognize those underlying economic forces, you will be forced. You will have no other choice but to force your blame upon the political action because you just don't see it any other way. That's the meaning that you have given it. Right, wrong, or indifferent doesn't matter, right? The meaning that you give all the information is the most important part. You know, I think about it. This comes down to just something as simple. Like, I used this analogy not too long ago. I pulled out, I didn't mean to, didn't see him. It was dark, whatever. I pulled out right in front of this dude. Homeboy laid on his horn for like a block. Like, he's right behind me. And I'm like, dude, okay, I got it, man. Yeah, I understand you're pissed, right? But he's still laying on the horn, and we're like, you know, we're still going down the road here. Right? And I'm like, okay, we didn't wreck, right? Problem is over. Like, the immediate threat of a problem is over, but he can't let it go, right? And it's just like he is just on this horn. And I'm thinking, okay, what kind of meaning did he give this interaction? Obviously, it was such a deep emotional feeling that he got when I pulled out in front of him that he took it upon himself to believe that I tried to hurt him on purpose because he was so angry about it. He wanted me to know that. Right? And I'm thinking to myself, dude, it was an accident. I didn't mean to. I didn't want to hurt you. Right? I didn't want to cause an accident. I didn't want anything to happen like that. I was not trying to attempt to do anything of this nature. But the guy behind me had no other understanding of it other than I'm a bad dude and I need to be called out for it with this horn, right? And so I think about that. It was just like, man, you could have given that a different meaning. You could have been like, whoa, that was close, man. You didn't see me. That was bad, man. You got to pay more attention, right? But you didn't have to be angry about it. He chose to have that meaning be anger. Right? And that's, again, it's all up to you. Yeah, I mean, I don't care what it is. It can be anything in life that way. The relationship with your wife, your boss, your fellow employees, your sister and brother, it doesn't matter. All comes down to the meaning that you're giving that conversation, that action, whatever it was that happened. I've seen this happen every day, even in myself. Like, you know, I had to deal with the fact that I'm, you know, very egotistical. Like, I mean, things have to be this way. If they're not this way, then it's wrong, you know, and then everything is going to collapse if it doesn't go that way. Letting go of my ego has been a very difficult thing to do. The older you get, the more you hold on to that thing, the more you're set in your ways, the more you don't want to just, you know, accept it as fate is going to be what it is. You know, it's just so difficult to do that. But when you start to let go of these things and you're giving it new meaning, you start realizing, man, the whole world is a much better place. Yeah. I used to give meaning to the New World Order that said, hey, it's deteriorating your life. It's making it worse. It's making it hard. They're the reasons why you're not successful. And I gave it that meaning. And guess what? It totally worked. Right? I mean, my life was crap. I said, okay, well, it's not their fault anymore. I'm not going to give it that meaning. And I'm going to put it into a different direction. And I'm going to look at what it is that I got going on as my responsibility, my fault, my action. I'm going to own all this. It doesn't have anything to do with them. You'll own nothing and be happy. That does not scare me, right? That doesn't scare me. Whatever. I already own nothing. I already, you know, just promise to be happy. That'd be awesome, right? So I'm not worried about that, and I don't give it meaning of being worried, you know, or afraid of that or something of that nature. Alrighty, guys, I gotta go. Uneducated Economist, you guys are awesome. Oops, where'd you guys go? There we go. I would love to keep going out here, but all right, life is one big event to humble the shit out of you. Yeah, that's for sure. What did All Nighter put a YouTube channel up there, or YouTube? All right, older you get, you take less crap and care less about what you think. It will change your life. Clear glass, again, that's about the meaning you give it. Life does not have to be at all. Thanks, man. Have a good one. Yeah, you guys are awesome. The channel is definitely in my top 5 best YouTube channels. You rock, bro. Keep up the good work, and thank you for all you do. Well, thank you, Ooze Smurf Hood. I love it. You guys are awesome. I really appreciate everything you guys do for the channel. You're all here regularly supporting the channel, sharing it, giving the thumbs up, the super chats. I cannot thank you guys enough for it. Come see me here at 1015 Theater in Astoria as I, perform this play for the next 3 weeks. And then if you happen to be in the Vegas area, we're going to be down there in the middle of February for Zuber's One Rental at a Time. So I'm on stage a lot here this next month. So, yeah, so go check that one out. That ought to be a really good event. Out of all the economic events that I've ever been to, Mike Zuber's was, I would have to say it was the funnest. It was like the closest feeling of networking with friends and family kind of feeling, right? Like the other ones are good. You meet some really cool people there. There's some really good speakers. There's, lots of good conversations and stuff like that happen. But Zuber's is it's just a different energy there. It's really good. So I'm looking forward to that one again, and looking forward to seeing the guys and hanging out and talking shop. All right, Uneducated Economist, you guys let me know.